Hi, thank you for joining me for today's process video, and today I'm documenting 3 small photos of my daughter Amelia when we were doing a practice run for her hair and makeup for a prom the other week. I wanted to create a really subtle layout because her makeup and hair was very subtle and her dress it was very difficult to describe the colour. It was like a grey lilac. We didn't ever know what to say when anybody asked. It was almost a blue as well. So I'm going to create a very subtle watercolour background, and I've pulled out 4 of my Distress Oxide inks. So I've started off there with Tattered Rose, and I'm just using the packaging technique. So I'm just adding the ink onto some packaging and then watering it down and smushing it onto my cardstock. The next colour I went in with was Shaded Lilac. Then I'm going in with Spun Sugar, and then the last colour I shall try is Lost Shadow. These are all colours that I can see in the photos of Amelia, and these photos have been printed out onto 4 photos to a 6x4 photo, so these are 2x3. So you can see these colours are going down very, very subtly, and when I bring the photos back in shortly, it's a little bit too subtle, so I will rectify that with some stenciling as well. So just going in and continuing to add some of these colours to try and build it up a bit. I added the pencil marks around my photos just so that I could see roughly where to put the mixed media. I didn't want to bring it out too far around the photos, but enough to be able to see those beautiful colours popping out. So nearly there now with this, and then I shall move them to one side to dry and work on these photos. So I've pulled out papers. I'm not really working from one range. I've got Wildflower from Simple Stories, and I've also pulled out some of the papers from their winter collection. The pinks worked really nicely. Simple Vintage Winter Woods. So first of all, I think this is a 6x8 paper from the paper pad. It might be a 12x12 paper actually from Wildflower. And I love this blue. It works beautifully with the colour of her dress. So just adding that to each of the 3 photos. And I've left one of the torn edges on one of those photos that I've just done, and I'm leaving, or was it this one that I added? Yes, this one. I've left the torn edge at the bottom, just to add a little bit of interest there to the photo. So just checking that I'm happy with how I'm going to position the photos and how it looks with the border. And then this is one of those Simple Vintage Winter Woods papers. Again, a really beautiful pink. It goes nicely with the Amelia's skin tone and also the pinks on the embroidery on her dress. We got this dress from Monsoon. It was beautiful. Mum went up to town with her. She'd seen it in Monsoon and said to Amelia, "You have to come and look." And straight away she knew that was the dress, so I was thrilled. And she did look absolutely stunning in it. I should be doing a couple of photos from their actual graduation as well, of her and James. So just adding this pink now behind the photos. I use this one, and then there's a stripy paper as well that I use, just again to provide a little bit of difference between the photos. There's the stripy one. It's very, very subtle, but it is there. So tearing the edge of that one again, just to add a bit of interest. All these tiny, subtle things that you do make a difference on a minimal layout like this one. So that I felt that torn bit was too big, so I'm just moving the photo over, and I'll trim off the excess on the left-hand side. Just making sure that everything's straight there. Well, not straight, but as straight as it can be using scissors. So I'm happy with the positioning of those photos. So here I am bringing back in that background, and you can see it's very subtle, and it was just a little bit too subtle for me because I'm not doing much more. So I'm bringing in this Vicky Boutin stencil. I don't know which collection it's from now. And my little stencil brush, and I'm just going to work in those 4 colours around the edges. And I love these roses that this stencil creates because it just sort of mimics the roses on Amelia's dress there. So just bringing in the spun sugar first of all, and being very careful not to be too heavy-handed, and just working it around the same area that I've added that watercolour previously. So now the Lost Shadow. And I'm just rubbing my brush off in between uses on that kitchen towel there, you can see. And just checking as I go round that I'm happy that it's not too dark and it's not too light that you don't see it. So I'm just taking my time because obviously you can't remove it, but you can keep adding if you need to. So that's the lost shadow done, and you can see it's just slowly building up a little bit more colour and a little bit more texture on that background. So in now with the tutted rose. And then finally I will do the shaded lilac. And shaded lilac I barely did anything because that's the one colour that did show through quite well on the watercolour technique, I suppose because it's a darker shade. So that's the tutted rose. And here finally is that shaded lilac. I'm just being very careful to add a tiny bit. I think that's just about it. A little bit more at the bottom left. I'm trying to line up the stencil where I can. It's not always possible, but just where the shapes are close together, trying to get it in the same position. And then we have it. So it looks like a mess now, but as soon as the photos go on, you can see it just peeps around all those photos and looks really pretty. So I'm going to add some foam pads behind the photos. These are those Sticks to 25mm ones that you see me using all the time if you watch my videos. And that just gives height to the photos to make them the focal point. And then I can just tuck a few little bits behind and call it done. Like I say, it is a very subdued and subtle layout that I'm creating here. So last photo with foam pads, and then I can start embellishing. So these are die cut leaves that I've just die cut from some white cardstock. It's a new die that we sell at Hey Little Magpie, but any leaf die would work well, and it just gives that ethereal look when you're creating a minimal layout like this. So just a couple of areas on either side of that top photo of Amelia. I'm just gluing those down with my wet glue and just adding glue to the bottom branches just so that they roam free, if you like, above the cardstock, because the photos are on foam. They'll add that shadowing and it looks really nice. Now this little silver bead is from one of the Hey Little Magpie black and white embellishment kits, and I just wanted to add a bit of sparkle because Amelia had a sparkly hair clip in her hair, so I thought that worked nicely. I've added one of our puffy hearts from the Bits and Pieces collection, and then this sticker is from the Wildflower sticker book, and I just thought it looked really nice up that side of that photo and then across the bottom here, and it's just a blush pink with some X's on. So I'm using that heart to hide the end of that sticker. So just tuck neatly under there. And I'm looking to see what else I can use. I find this gorgeous blue sprig, and I think that will work really nicely with the blues that I've used on the backing papers. And of course with Amelia's dress, and it just brings a subtle bit of colour there to the left-hand side. I also found this date sticker, which works nicely, so I can add my date to that. And I think I'm going to use this sticker that says beautiful, but in the end I decided it's just a little bit too dark, the pink, so I do replace that shortly. So I tried Lost Shadow to stamp the date, but it wasn't showing through clearly enough, so I went in with Shaded Lilac in the end. So just pulling that beautiful sticker back off and replacing it with another one that says Live a Good Story. And the pink's just a little bit more subtle there. So a tiny bit of journaling underneath here, and I just said hair and makeup trial the day before secondary school prom. It all worked beautifully. You take my breath away. So now coming in with some of my old stash, so some little enamel dots and hearts from an old Cocoa Vanilla collection. These colours just match really nicely with the colours that I've used so far. And then some of my sparkly enamel hearts that we sell at Hey Little Magpie. Just a couple of those. One underneath that date sticker, and it does move a couple of times actually. And I think I'm putting one up here, but again that one moves as well. It's just trying to get the balance right really when you're adding all these little bits. These are some more glitter enamel dots that we sell at Hey Little Magpie. And just dotting those around the page. And I decided that those two hearts were a little bit too heavy at the bottom there, so I removed the pink and just stick with the tiny grey one. So here I am moving these glitter hearts around now. And I'm much happier with the composition having those further down the page. Now covering everything up, and I'm going to come in with one of my shimmer glossy paints in a grey, like a dove grey, and just add some splatters. At first I tried to do tiny little ones, but it doesn't really cooperate and it ends up adding a massive big blob. So then I just go for it and create that diagonal from the top left to bottom right, adding a few more splatters around, and that's it. Thank you so much for joining me. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. Something very different for me, but I'm thrilled with the outcome. So I'll leave you with the close-ups here. Thanks again. See you soon. Bye.